The galaxy had always known of the Draconian Empire. Its ships were massive, its warriors feared, and its reputation for swift and ruthless conquests spread across the stars. The Draconians, an ancient and powerful race, never left their enemies with a chance to fight back. Their fleet, an overwhelming force, had conquered countless planets in the galaxy, and Earth was next on their list. For months, whispers of the Draconian invasion reached Earth. The stories were always the same. The Draconians would arrive in their warships, demand surrender, and destroy anything or anyone that dared resist. Earth, a relatively young and unassuming planet, was seen as an easy target. Its technology was no match for the Draconian fleet, and their military forces were still in the early stages of development compared to the galactic powers. But when the Draconian fleet finally arrived, something was different. As the massive armada entered Earth's solar system, the first surprise came from the planet itself. There were no signs of panic, no frantic calls for help from Earth's leaders. Instead, there was an eerie silence. Zarathdral, the admiral of the Draconian fleet, watched from the bridge of his flagship as Earth's defenses came into view. The planet appeared calm, almost welcoming. The usual signals of resistance that the Draconians had encountered on other worlds were completely absent. No soldiers in the skies, no missile launches, no alarms blaring across communications channels. "This is too easy," Zarath muttered, his sharp eyes scanning the planet below. He glanced at his officers, who stood nervously at their stations. "We've never encountered such an unprepared world," one of the officers said, his voice trembling slightly. "Let us not mistake silence for surrender," Zarath responded with a cold smile. He had seen it before, other worlds that had tried to fool the mighty Draconians with their calm, only to reveal their true strength when the invasion began. But Zarath wasn't worried. His fleet was the most powerful in the galaxy. The humans below were nothing compared to the forces he commanded. He raised his hand to signal the fleet's descent. The Draconian ships, with their sharp, menacing designs, began to drop into Earth's atmosphere, their engines roaring like thunder. The people of Earth would soon learn that resistance was futile. As the fleet continued its approach, a strange message suddenly flashed across the screens in Zarath's command room. The communication was simple, short, and direct. "Earth does not fear you." The words were strange. How could a species with so little technology dare to challenge the Draconians, let alone send such a bold message? Zarath frowned, a mix of curiosity and annoyance growing inside him. His pride as a Draconian admiral would not allow him to take this lightly. "Prepare the ground forces," he commanded. "We will land on Earth, show them the might of our army, and make them submit to our will." Despite his confident words, a sense of unease lingered in Zarath's mind. It was clear that Earth was not as weak as it had been made out to be. But this did not concern him greatly. The Draconians had never failed, and Earth was not about to change that. Meanwhile, far below on the surface of Earth, things were very different. People went about their day-to-day lives, unaware of the terrifying fleet now hovering above their world. In the cities, the streets were full of life, and homes were quiet and peaceful. For the average human, it seemed like another ordinary day. But the truth was that Earth had been preparing for this moment for years. No one knew how or why, but there were rumors that the planet had been working on something extraordinary. In secret military bases, a quiet but growing force had been building its own technologies. Advanced, cutting-edge systems far beyond what Earth's enemies had expected. But all of this was hidden in plain sight, disguised by a world that appeared to be just another peaceful planet, ripe for the taking. Back in space, Zarath's fleet continued to descend, ignoring the strange message that still lingered in the back of his mind. Soon, they would be in Earth's atmosphere, and the true strength of humanity would be tested. Or so he thought. As the first wave of Draconian scouts landed on Earth's surface, no immediate action came. The planet's atmosphere seemed empty of any resistance, as if the humans were waiting for something. But Zarath would not be fooled. The game had only just begun. The Draconian fleet hovered ominously above Earth, like a dark cloud casting its shadow across the planet. Their warships were massive, each one equipped with weapons capable of wiping out entire cities in seconds. Zarathtrul, the fleet's admiral, watched from the bridge of his flagship as the first wave of Draconian scouts descended to Earth's surface. His eyes narrowed with anticipation. "This will be over quickly," Zarath said, his voice steady, though a part of him couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that had lingered since they first approached the planet. Earth's silence was unnatural. The humans had not even attempted to put up any form of defense. It was as if they were waiting for something, a moment of reckoning that the Draconians would soon reveal. On Earth, in the quietest corners of the world, people were still going about their everyday routines. In bustling cities, workers went about their business, unaware of the invasion that was unfolding above them. The streets were filled with life, and shops bustled with customers. Yet the silence between the people of Earth and the invaders spoke volumes. There had been no panic, no urgent messages sent out to the military. The planet had, for some strange reason, fallen into a quiet peace. To Zarath, this silence was maddening. It didn't make sense. Was this Earth's way of surrendering? Was this their form of submission? It seemed too easy. No alarms, no panic, just nothing. Despite his doubts, the Draconian forces pushed forward, continuing their descent onto Earth's surface. The first wave of scout ships landed on the outer edges of Earth's largest cities, their sensors scanning the surroundings for any signs of resistance. As they began their search, a wave of strange signals interrupted their systems. Static filled their communication channels, and their systems began malfunctioning, as if something was interfering with their equipment. Zarath's frustration grew as he watched the data stream in. "What is this?" he demanded, slamming his fist onto the console. "Why are our systems failing?" His officers scrambled to understand what was happening. The data showed that Earth's atmosphere was somehow blocking their communications. The Draconian ships had always been able to dominate any planet's atmosphere, but Earth's airwaves were different. It was as though there was a shield, something hidden just beneath the surface, that the Draconians couldn't detect. The scouts, unaware of what they were walking into, moved forward. They found nothing but empty fields and quiet forests. It was almost too quiet. No wildlife, no sign of life at all. A few of the scouts ventured deeper into the cities, their eyes scanning the streets. The buildings were tall, the streets clean, and the silence was deafening. "We found nothing," one of the Draconian officers reported over the communication channel. "The humans are gone. This is a ghost city." Zarath's eyes narrowed as he listened to the report. "No, this isn't right. They must be hiding. They're preparing something. Don't let your guard down." The scouts, still unaware of the trap they were walking into, spread out further. They advanced, following their orders to secure the area. But as they did, the ground beneath them began to change. The air around them felt thicker, as if something unseen was pressing down on them. Back on the Draconian flagship, Zarath watched the monitors with growing frustration. He had expected resistance, but nothing like this. Why hadn't the humans fought back? Why weren't they trying to stop the invasion? Then, the first attack came. It wasn't a traditional weapon. It wasn't a missile or a bomb. It was something far more subtle and far more terrifying. The Draconian scout ships, as they moved deeper into the heart of the city, began to experience sudden failures. Their communication systems cut out. Their weapons systems malfunctioned. Their engines sputtered and died. One by one, the scout ships began to fall from the sky, crashing into the streets below. It was not a force of nature, but something far more calculated, an invisible hand of destruction. The scouts had no idea what was happening. They had been lured into a trap. Zarath watched as the chaos unfolded on the screens. His officers scrambled to figure out what was happening, but there was no answer. The scouts had disappeared without a trace, their ships lying in ruins across Earth's surface. The silence that had once unsettled the Draconians now felt even more unnerving. "What is this?" Zarath roared, his frustration reaching its peak. "Why is this happening? What is happening to my fleet?" The answer, though, was simple. Humanity had been preparing. The quiet peace they had shown the Draconians was not a sign of submission. It was a strategy. Earth had been quietly building its defenses, far beyond what the Draconians could have ever imagined. It wasn't just technology that humanity had been developing in secret. It was the power to turn their very surroundings into a weapon. The invisible force that had crippled the Draconian fleet was a carefully devised electromagnetic disruption, developed over years of covert work. Earth had been ready for this moment, and the Draconians had walked right into their trap. As the scout's destruction spread, Zorath Dral's heart sank. He had underestimated Earth, and now, Earth was showing the Draconians what it meant to be underestimated. Zorath Dral stared at the screen, his mind racing. The Draconian scouts, once the pride of his fleet, had been destroyed in an instant. Their ships lay in ruins, smoking wrecks scattered across Earth's surface. His officers scrambled at their stations, trying to regain control, but it was too late. The Draconian fleet had been caught completely off guard. "This can't be happening," Zorath muttered, his voice a mix of disbelief and anger. How could this small, unimportant planet have done this? His officers couldn't answer. They had no explanation. Earth's technology, in their eyes, was far behind that of the Draconians. There was no way these humans could have prepared such an advanced weapon. But they had. And now, the once feared Draconian fleet was facing an enemy they had never anticipated. Meanwhile, on Earth's surface, the planet's inhabitants were waking up to the full reality of the situation. The silence that had fallen over their cities was broken by the sound of alarm sirens. Across the globe, military bases came to life as the news of the Draconian invasion spread like wildfire. But Earth's military didn't rush into battle in the traditional way. They were not acting out of fear or panic. They were calm, precise, and ready. In secret research facilities, far below the surface, a small group of scientists watched the unfolding events with a quiet sense of pride. They had known this day would come. The Draconians had underestimated humanity's capacity for defense. Earth had been preparing for years, building technologies in secret, developing weapons that could match the might of even the most powerful empires in the galaxy. While the Draconians had been busy attacking one planet after another, Earth had taken a different approach. The human race had studied every aspect of their enemies, learned from their mistakes, and worked tirelessly to ensure that when the Draconians finally arrived, they would be met with a force they could not defeat. The electromagnetic disruption that had crippled the Draconian fleet was just the beginning. It was one of many weapons designed to take down the invaders. The technology was simple yet effective. A carefully crafted network of energy pulses designed to disrupt Draconian ship systems. It was not something the Draconians had expected, nor something they could easily counter. Back on the Draconian flagship, Zorath paced angrily across the bridge. His mind was filled with questions. What else did these humans have? How could they have known what was coming? His pride had been shattered in just a few moments, and he could feel the weight of failure bearing down on him. "We need to regroup," Zorath said, his voice cold and controlled. "Send the next wave of ships. We can't allow this world to escape our grasp." His officers hesitated. They had never seen Zorath this shaken before. The Draconian Empire was known for its power and efficiency, but now, Earth was showing them that their dominance might not be as secure as they once thought. "Sir, the fleet is still recovering," one officer said cautiously. "Our ships are damaged. It will take time to repair them." Zorath turned sharply. "I don't care about the ships. We have to finish this. We cannot retreat. We cannot let these humans believe they can stand against us." The officer nodded but hesitated, unsure of what to do next. Zorath's fury was palpable, but there was a flicker of doubt in his eyes. The Draconian fleet had never encountered resistance like this before. In every battle, they had been the aggressors, the conquerors. Now, they were on the back foot. Meanwhile, Earth's forces were moving swiftly. Across the globe, military leaders and civilians alike were working together in a way that had never been seen before. The sudden appearance of the Draconian fleet had unified humanity in a way that nothing else had. Nations put aside their differences, their fears, and joined forces to protect their home. The scientists who had developed the electromagnetic technology were already working on their next step. They had learned from the Draconians' first attack and knew that the invaders would not give up so easily. Earth's military leaders were preparing for the inevitable second wave, but they were not afraid. They knew that the key to winning was not simply in their weapons, but in their unity. Back in the skies, the Draconian fleet was regrouping. The damage done to their ships was considerable, but they were still a formidable force. Zarathral, though shaken, was determined to crush Earth's resistance. He would not allow his reputation to be tarnished by a small planet that had dared to stand in his way. But Earth was ready. Zarath's ships moved back into formation, and the second wave of Draconian soldiers began their descent. This time, however, they would not face a defenseless world. Earth's preparations were complete. The humans had not just built weapons. They had built a defense system that was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. And as the second wave of Draconians entered Earth's atmosphere, they would soon discover just how far Earth was willing to go to protect its home. The tension in the skies over Earth was palpable. The Draconian fleet, though battered, was far from finished. Their warships loomed above the planet, like monstrous shadows, ready to unleash their fury. Zarathral stood at the command center of his flagship, his eyes scanning the data on the screens before him. His mind raced, but there was one thing he knew for certain. Earth would not fall so easily. "We'll show them the true power of the Draconian fleet," Zarath said, his voice cold with resolve. "Prepare for the second assault. This time, we take no prisoners." His officers nodded, though there was a flicker of doubt in their eyes. The first wave had been disastrous, but they were not ready to admit defeat. Zarath had ordered the fleet to regroup, and now they would strike back with full force. They would bring Earth to its knees. Back on Earth, the mood was far different. People were no longer waiting in silence. They were preparing. The streets buzzed with activity as military units moved into position, ready to defend their home. Governments that had once been divided now worked together, united under one banner: humanity's survival. The world's defense systems had been put to the test, and they had passed. The electromagnetic disruption that had crippled the Draconian scouts was only the beginning. Now, humanity was ready for the true battle. Earth's military leaders had a simple but powerful message: we will not fall. Across the globe, soldiers in every corner of Earth stood tall. They knew the stakes. They had seen the destruction the Draconians were capable of, but they also knew that the invaders had underestimated them. Earth was not just another planet to conquer. It was a home, and its people would fight for it. In the command centers around the world, human officers were making final preparations. Advanced defense systems, hidden in plain sight, were activated. Each nation's military had secretly been working on technologies that were now poised to make the difference. Earth's secret weapon was not just about raw power. It was about strategy, unity, and a deep understanding of their enemies. "Launch the first strike," one human commander ordered, his voice calm but firm. In an instant, a series of coordinated attacks sent waves of energy surging through the skies. Missiles and energy pulses shot toward the Draconian fleet, but this time, the attack wasn't just physical. It was digital. The electromagnetic weapons designed to disrupt Draconian systems once again flared to life, but this time with far more intensity. Zarathral watched in horror as his fleet's systems began to fail once again. The weapons systems, communications, and navigation all sputtered and died. The human strikes were precise, targeting key systems that crippled the Draconian fleet from within. The warships that had once been so proud, so powerful, were now helpless. "What is this?" Zarath shouted, his voice filled with frustration and disbelief. Their weapons, their technology. It's unlike anything we've ever seen. His officers scrambled to make sense of the chaos unfolding before them. The Draconian ships had been designed to be unstoppable, yet now they were vulnerable to a force they could not comprehend. The humans were fighting back with a kind of quiet strength that was impossible to ignore. Below, Earth's forces continued their offensive. With the Draconian ships disabled, human ground troops advanced on the scattered Draconian soldiers who had managed to land on Earth's surface. These were not ordinary soldiers. They were part of the Draconian elite, the finest warriors in the galaxy. But on Earth, they found themselves outmatched by human ingenuity and determination. In cities around the world, Earth's forces moved with precision. Soldiers who had once been separated by borders and ideologies now fought side by side. The human spirit, relentless and fierce, was their greatest weapon. While the Draconians had advanced technology, Earth had something far more powerful: the will to survive. Zarath, back aboard his flagship, watched as his forces were pushed back. His mind raced for a solution, but there was none. The humans had anticipated their every move. They had read the Draconian tactics and prepared accordingly. The battle was not just about strength. It was about knowledge, planning, and understanding the enemy. "We can't let them win," Zarath muttered under his breath. He clenched his fists. "We have to strike back. We have to take control." With a wave of his hand, he ordered the fleet to regroup, but the damage was done. The Draconians had lost the element of surprise, and their ships were now vulnerable. The second wave of attacks from Earth's forces was coming, and the Draconians were not ready. As the battle raged on, Zarath knew that time was running out. His fleet was being dismantled, piece by piece. The humans had proven to be more than just an obstacle. They were a force to be reckoned with, and that was something Zarath had never expected. Back on Earth, soldiers continued to fight with everything they had. The first victory against the Draconians had been hard-earned, but it was only the beginning. The humans had shown their strength, and now they would show the galaxy what they were truly capable of. The tide of battle had shifted. Earth was no longer the helpless planet it had once been in the eyes of the Draconians. It was a force to be reckoned with, and the Draconian fleet would soon learn just how powerful humanity's will to survive could be. Zarathrel's gaze was locked on the view screen, watching in disbelief as the Draconian fleet struggled against the unexpected force of Earth's counterattack. His once proud armada, a symbol of the Draconian Empire's dominance, was faltering. The humans' technology had turned the tide, and his ships were helpless against the energy pulses and precision strikes that disabled their systems. "This cannot be happening," Zarath muttered, his voice strained with frustration. He had never encountered an adversary like this before. The humans, a relatively primitive race, had somehow developed a defense that could not only withstand but dismantle the might of the Draconian fleet. His officers rushed around the bridge, desperately trying to salvage what they could, but it was clear that the situation was dire. "We need to retreat," one of the officers suggested, his voice trembling. "If we stay any longer, we will lose the entire fleet." Zarath's eyes flashed with anger. "Retreat," he barked. "We are Draconians. We do not retreat. We are conquerors." He slammed his fist onto the command console, but the console sparked in response, unable to register his command. His frustration only deepened. He paced the bridge, his mind racing for a solution. Every tactic they had relied on for centuries had failed against Earth's unrelenting defense. He had underestimated humanity, and now the consequences were becoming clear. The Draconian Empire, with all its might, was on the verge of defeat by a species they had once considered insignificant. Meanwhile, on the ground, Earth's forces were not letting up. The cities that had once been filled with fear and uncertainty were now alive with action. Human soldiers, working in coordinated teams, advanced on the Draconian soldiers who had managed to land. The invaders were now being pushed back, and Earth's defenses were holding firm. In underground command centers, Human generals and scientists exchanged information, constantly adjusting their tactics. The Draconian forces were retreating, but Earth's leaders knew that this was not the end. There was still the threat of Zarath's fleet looming above, and it would take all of humanity's strength to finish the fight. "We need to press forward," one general said, looking over the reports. "They're not done yet. They'll try again. But this time, we'll be ready." The streets were filled with people working together, from soldiers to civilians, to build barricades and fortifications. Every corner of Earth was alive with the spirit of unity and survival. It was a force the Draconians had not expected. They thought they could break humanity with one attack, but they had underestimated how much Earth had already prepared. As Earth's forces continued to push forward, the Draconian soldiers on the ground found themselves caught in a struggle they were not prepared for. These were elite warriors, trained in the arts of war across the galaxy. Yet, against the unexpected tactics and sheer determination of Earth's soldiers, they were beginning to falter. The humans fought with a passion that no one, not even the Draconians, had anticipated. Zarath was still on his flagship, his eyes never leaving the screen. The battle on Earth's surface was now at a stalemate, but the fleet above still held a strategic advantage. He knew if he could just get the upper hand once more, he could force the humans to surrender. But with each passing moment, the situation worsened. His fleet was weakening. The humans' technology was outmatching their own, and they had more hidden surprises waiting in the wings. "We need reinforcements," Zarath said, his voice now calmer, but laced with urgency. "Send a distress signal to the Empire. We need all available forces. Now." His officers scrambled, but there was a problem. The signal they sent out was quickly jammed by Earth's countermeasures. The electromagnetic pulses that had been so effective in disabling the Draconian fleet were now preventing any communication from leaving the planet. Zarath's desperate call for help went unanswered. "What do we do now?" one officer asked, clearly on edge. Zarath's jaw clenched. He had no answer. The Draconian fleet had been built on the principle of unstoppable might, but now it was being destroyed by the ingenuity and unity of a species they had once thought of as weak. As the battle raged on, it became clear that the Draconians were not going to win. Their ships were retreating, their forces scattered. Earth's soldiers, though wary, pushed forward with unwavering resolve. They fought not just for survival, but for their future. They fought for their families, their homes, and for the world they had built. The Draconians had underestimated humanity, and now they were paying the price. Zarath's desperation grew as Earth's forces continued their offensive. The Draconian fleet was no longer the unstoppable force it had once been. It was a broken, retreating shadow of its former self. Zarath knew that the battle was far from over, but for the first time, he could feel the balance of power shifting. The Draconians had failed to conquer Earth, and their enemies were no longer just fighting for survival. They were fighting for victory. Earth had proven one thing. No matter how powerful the enemy, no matter how advanced the technology, humanity's determination and unity could overcome any challenge. The Draconians, for the first time in their long history of conquest, were facing an enemy that refused to give up. And the galaxy was watching. Zarathral stood at the helm of his flagship, a dark storm of emotions swirling within him. The once mighty Draconian fleet had been reduced to a mere fraction of its original strength. His ships were limping, their systems crippled by Earth's unexpected technological advances. His soldiers were scattered, losing ground to a force they never thought would be capable of standing up to them. It was the first time in his long life that Zarath felt truly vulnerable. "We cannot let this happen," Zarath muttered, his voice hard and determined. "The Draconian Empire does not fall to mere humans." His officers, though loyal, were beginning to show signs of fear. The confidence that once radiated from their faces had been replaced by uncertainty. They had underestimated Earth, and now they were paying for it. "Send a final communication to the Empire," Zarath commanded, his voice sharp. We must have reinforcements, immediately. But again, the signal was jammed, and for the first time, Zarath felt a sense of helplessness wash over him. The electromagnetic pulses that Earth had deployed were cutting off any chance of reinforcements arriving. His fleet was trapped, and the humans on the ground were advancing rapidly, pushing the Draconians into a corner. Back on Earth, the atmosphere had shifted. What had begun as a desperate defense was now a full-scale offensive. Soldiers, generals, and civilians alike were working together as one unified force. The streets of every city were filled with action. Earth was no longer on the defensive. It was taking the fight to the invaders. The humans had learned much during the conflict. They knew that the Draconians relied on their overwhelming firepower and superior technology. But now, Earth was using their own intelligence and creativity to turn the tide. Soldiers adapted, thinking quickly and using the environment to their advantage. Cities that had once been targeted for destruction were now the heart of Earth's resistance. In a hidden underground bunker, human scientists worked feverishly. Their analysis of Draconian technology had unlocked new possibilities. They had developed countermeasures and weaponry capable of disrupting the Draconian systems even further. Earth's forces were equipped with cutting-edge technology that was not just on par with the Draconians, but in some cases, superior. "We've got this," General Harris said, looking over the battlefield reports. "The Draconians don't stand a chance now. We've pushed them back to the edge." The ground battle raged on as human soldiers continued to advance. Draconian soldiers, elite warriors once feared across the galaxy, were now retreating, their morale shattered. The humans, though fewer in number, fought with unmatched courage and determination. They had proven that their strength wasn't in their weapons alone. It was in their unity and their unyielding will to protect their home. But the Draconian fleet above was still a looming threat. Though weakened, it had not yet surrendered. Zarath was still on his flagship, holding on to the last remnants of his pride and authority. The humans had pushed him to the brink, but he was not yet ready to accept defeat. He watched, fuming, as his officers continued to scramble. The Draconian ships were no longer in any condition to fight. Earth's precision strikes had disabled nearly every one of them. Their once pristine weaponry was now useless, and their shield systems were down. Zarath could see the inevitable conclusion. The Draconian fleet was being destroyed, one ship at a time. "We must take action," Zarath shouted. "We cannot allow this humiliation to continue. Launch everything we have left." But it was too late. The humans had already anticipated this move. As Zarath gave the order for a final strike, a surge of electromagnetic energy rippled across the space around them. Earth's forces had developed a new weapon, one that would disable the remaining Draconian ships completely. The energy pulse hit the Draconian fleet like a tidal wave, overwhelming their already strained systems. Zarath's eyes widened in horror as his ship began to tremble. The lights flickered, and the control panels shorted out. His once mighty fleet, once the terror of the galaxy, was now nothing more than a collection of drifting, crippled warships. "We're losing everything," one of his officers said in disbelief. Zarath's hands clenched into fists. He had fought for his empire, for his people, but now it was all slipping away. The Draconian fleet was no longer a threat. Earth had won. On the surface, Earth's soldiers were closing in. The remaining Draconian forces that had landed were scattered and disorganized. Humanity had proven that no matter how powerful the enemy, no matter the odds, they would fight to the last breath to defend their world. General Harris stood at the front of the command center, watching the final moments of the battle unfold. "It's over," he said, his voice filled with relief. "We've won." Zarath, however, was not finished. In the depths of his ship, he formulated one last plan. Though defeated, he would not go down without a fight. He ordered his remaining officers to prepare for a last-ditch attempt to escape, hoping to salvage what little was left of the fleet. The Draconian leader had not yet given up on his dream of conquest, but as he gave the order to retreat, the weight of his failure was clear. Earth had proven that it was more than just a planet to be conquered. It was a force that would never kneel. Zarath's last remaining fleet ships began to retreat, and the final battle for Earth was over. But the war was not just about military victory. It was about proving to the galaxy that humanity was not to be underestimated. They had stood against the might of the Draconian Empire and had emerged victorious. And the universe would never forget it. The remnants of the Draconian fleet limped away from Earth's atmosphere, their shields flickering like dying embers. Zarathral, once a fierce commander whose name sent shivers across the galaxy, now found himself in the midst of his greatest defeat. His mind raced, but even he knew it was over. His empire was crumbling. Earth had become the symbol of resistance, a place where the impossible had been achieved. As the last of the Draconian ships vanished into the vastness of space, Zarath gazed at the screen in front of him. The human fleet, though small in comparison, was now the dominant force in the system. Their ships, once no match for the Draconians, had outsmarted and outlasted their invaders. Their ingenuity had turned the tide. Zarath's officers, those few who remained loyal, stood in silence, their expressions hollow. They knew their empire's dream of conquering Earth had died. And with it they too faced an uncertain future. "Where do we go from here?" one of the officers whispered, his voice heavy with the weight of defeat. Zarath didn't answer. He simply stared out at the stars, his thoughts distant. He had underestimated the humans. They were not just survivors, they were fighters. And in their victory they had proven that no empire, no matter how powerful, could ever crush the spirit of a people willing to fight for their home. Meanwhile, back on Earth, the celebrations had already begun. The battle had been long and brutal, but humanity had triumphed. Cities that had once been under siege now rang with the sounds of victory. Families reunited, and the streets were filled with people who had once feared for their lives, but now walked with their heads held high. General Harris stood in the command center, a look of quiet satisfaction on his face as the final reports came in. "It's over. The last of the Draconian forces are either retreating or surrendering. We've won." The humans had done the impossible. Not only had they repelled the invasion, but they had also shown the galaxy that they would never bow to anyone, no matter how strong. They had proven that Earth was not a prize to be claimed. It was a home worth fighting for. As Earth's forces began to reorganize, the leaders of the world stood together, united in their vision for the future. The war had shown them the importance of cooperation and unity. No longer would nations fight among themselves. The shared struggle against the Draconians had brought humanity closer than ever before. "We must rebuild," President Walker said in her speech to the world. "We will ensure that Earth remains a safe place for all who call it home. We will never forget the sacrifices made to protect our world, and we will honor those who gave everything." Across the globe, people listened, inspired by the leader's words. The war had taken its toll, but it had also brought out the best in humanity. Earth was stronger than ever before, and they were not alone. In the vastness of space, Earth had made an impression. Zarath's fleet might have been defeated, but the Draconian Empire was not the only power in the universe. The human victory had sparked conversations across distant worlds. Alien species that had once seen humans as insignificant were now paying attention. The message was clear. Earth was not to be underestimated. While Zarath and his officers retreated, their defeat would not go unnoticed. The Draconians, though humiliated, would not forget the lesson they had learned. And in the quiet corners of the galaxy, whispers began to spread of a new power that had emerged. Earth, once a backwater planet, was now a force to be reckoned with. In the years that followed, Earth's role in the galaxy would continue to grow. The technology gleaned from the Draconians was integrated into their society, improving life for everyone. But it wasn't just technology that the humans had gained. It was the confidence that came with victory. They had faced the impossible and emerged victorious, and that spirit would shape humanity's future. As the years passed, Earth's influence expanded. The galaxy, once vast and filled with unknown dangers, now felt a little smaller. Earth had found its place among the stars, no longer a target, but a force of its own. And as humanity reached out to the stars, they did so not with fear, but with hope. Zarath's fate was sealed. He had failed, and Earth had won. But the story of Earth's victory was not just one of military might. It was a story of resilience, unity, and the power of people who refused to give up on their home. It was a story that would be told for generations, inspiring others to stand tall in the face of adversity. And as Zarath disappeared into the farthest reaches of space, the people of Earth continued to look up at the stars, knowing that no matter what came next, they had the strength to face it.